Hi friends, in this session I'm going to talk on the topic observer interface and observable class in Java. So what is observer interface? So just consider that you have um, three classes named alright, let me give you the definition of this observer interface. What is observer interface? So to observe an observable object you must implement the observer interface. So for example, you have few classes like A, B, C, D, all right, and you would like to monitor, you would like to observe the activities, the behavior of classes B, C, and D. All right. So in this case, you can make you need to create an observer, and obviously B, C, D activities want to be noted. I mean, those behaviors need to be observed. So B, C, and D classes becomes observable classes, and you can make the class A as observer interface. I mean, class A you can make as an observer by implementing the observer interface. So so you have class A, B, C, D. All right, B, C, and D classes objects should be observed. I mean, should be monitored. All right. So in we need some observer to monitor the classes B, C, and D. Right. So we can make an observer just by so we do have a class named A. So we can make this class A implements observer interface, so that this class A becomes an observer. All right, so it can be used to observe, class A can be used to observe class B, C, and D or class objects. All right, so this observer interface, so whenever you want to make an observer, you need to make the class implements the observer interface. So this observer interface, it does have a method named update, which takes two parameters. One is observable object, and the other one is the normal an object class uh, parameter. All right, so here observable object ob serve ob is the observable object, is the object being observed, and the second parameter argument, it is passed by the notify observers. There is a method, all right, in observable class. So the update method is called when a change in observed object takes place. Alright, this method, when this method is called when there is any changes occurred in the observable object, this update method is called. All right, so whenever any changes occurred in the observable object, observed object, then this update method is called. All right, so then we're going to look at observable class. Here you can see few methods like add observer. So add observer, you can see we takes a parameter observer object. So add observer, what it does, like if you take any observable class, that observable class, I mean that observable object might be observed by n number of observers. So in this case, there might be a list of observer. So we, we would like to add any observer. So then we can make use of this add observer to add observer to the list of objects, observer objects. And then clear changed, there is a method calling this method returns the status of the invoking object to unchanged. All right. And then count observer, it returns the number of observers of this object. And delete observer will, it takes one parameter observer object, it will delete that particular observer. And then delete observers, it removes all the observers of this invoking object. As changed, returns true if the invoking object has been modified, or else false. And then notify observers, so what it does, it will notify all the observers of the invoking object that it has changed by calling update. So notify observers, it will make a call to the update. It will call the update method. um, I mean, it will notify the notifies all the observers of the invoking object that is changed, right? That is uh, um, that's been done by the notify observers. So a null is passed as a second argument to update. Here again one more version of notify observers, it takes one parameter object that it notifies all the observers of the invoking object that it has changed by calling update. That object is passed as an argument to update method which exists in the observer interface. So and then set changed, called when the invoking object has changed. So this should be this set changed, it is you need to use this set changed method when there is any changes in the invoking object, right? So we're going to call two methods in the invoking object, that is set changed and the notify observers with parameter. All right, so let's get into the program. I will show you how it works in the real world programming. Okay, here I'm going to create a class named O Observer. Okay, and so here I click on this, you can see I have created a class named caps O Observer. All right, and you can so I'm going to create the observer class. All right, so how do we make a class as a observer? The class has to implement the observer interface. So here I have given the class name O Observer, and then you can see otherwise let me use the word watcher. Okay, so that would be better, watcher. And here I give watcher, and so this watcher has to implement the interface named observer so that it becomes the observer. So interface java dot, so I just you can see already it is listed observer java dot util dot observer. I select that and then finish. So here you can see the class named watcher is created, which implements the observer interface. And you can see the override method update, which takes two parameters. One is observable object, and the object parameter. Second parameter is object. So this update method, it exists in the observer interface. All right. So what I'm gonna do within this update method, let me just print a statement let me just print the object which I get it from the I mean through from the observable object, right? So let me print a statement system.out.println one dot to string from class watcher update method. Fine, now I have created the observer class. The name of the class is watcher, so that becomes the observer. All right. Okay, fine. Inside the update method I have um, printed a statement. I mean I have just to print a statement in the outstream. I have used the system.out.println to print a statement in the outstream from class watcher update whatever the object I get it through the observable class. All right, fine. So I believe this update you already we discussed. It's been explained that this update method will be called when the set changed method of observable class and notify observer method. So that will call this method. All right, so I can see it here. Called when the invoking object has changed. So then when it has changed by calling update. All observes of the by calling update. All right. Notify all observers of the invoking object that it has changed by calling update. All right. So so this update method it is called by the notify observer. All right, so notify observers, there is a method in observable object. There is a class called observable class that we are going to implement now. All right, till now I believe you got it. So we have created let me give a small recap. We have created a class named watcher which implements observer, so that this becomes a so this watcher can observe uh, objects of other class, right? So it has a method called this update method. It exists in the observer interface, so we override it here. It takes two parameters, one is observable object and the other one is object. All right, and inside this we just print a statement from class watcher update. This argument what we get through the as the second parameter, that parameter from the observable class, that we printed here. So let me create one more class called so being watched. Okay, this class it implements see I have created a I'm going to create a class called being watched. All right, that's the name of the class, being watched. And I want to observe the objects of this class. All right, I want to observe the objects of the class being watched. So when I create this class being watched, I need to make sure that this class implements the observable class, so that the objects of this class will be observed by the observer. Alright, so let me make this class which extends the observable class. So observable, when I type in observable, it shows, it lists down the observable class. I select that. So now it implement the it extends the being watched, inherit the observable class. All right, so here I just click on finish. Okay, now you can see inside this I just create a method git, and okay, and in here I just pass a string variable x and inside this what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna call the set changed. All right, see, we have created the being watched class which extends the observable. All right, you can see which extends the observable. This observable class does have two methods. One is set changed, that I am using here, set changed. This method, what it does, it just tells the um, observer that some changes is occurred in the observable class being watched. All right, and then notify, one more method is there, uh, underneath observable class. So that method name is notify observer observers, and it takes one parameter. You can pass in the x value. All right, which you get it from the end user, I mean. So, and we would like to, so this notifier observers, what it does, it takes one parameter x, string parameter, one object, right? Notify observers, this method notify observers, it exists in the observable class. What it does, this notify observers, it tells the observer interface that um, some change, it notifies the observer interface and pass in the object. um, I mean, it notifies the observer interface by calling the update method of observer interface. Also, it pass in the object. All right, here we have given the object x. All right, it is a string object. Fine. So let me just let me print. I would like to print some text in the outstream, um, saying from uh, class being watched jet method x. Mm, right? Fine. Now I believe till now you have you got to know. So now one more so let me give a short small recap. Here I have created in this I have created a class named being watched, which extends observable class. So when a class extends observable class, so that class becomes that 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 class get into a state called being observed. So this class being watched is observed by the observer. Here the observer is a watcher. All right. So this watcher will observe the behavior of this being watched class. All right. So here inside this being watched class, what I have created a method named JIT. I passed in string object. So within this method I have created a method which returns nothing. All right, void. But it calls two methods of observable interface, sorry, observable class. So it calls two methods of observable class. So what are all those? Set changed, notify observers. Set changed uh, will will inform the observer that some changes has been occurred in the observable class, here being watched. All right, that's a class. And notify observers, what it does, notify observers, um, it it notifies the observer, it notifies the observers, notify observer, what it does, notify observer will call the uh, will notify the observer by calling the update method. Also it pass in the ob- object value. All right. So and then I have printed the x value. Fine. uh, so this, and now I'm going to create one more method, one more class named msync. All right. So here I make a check mark in the public static void main. I click on main. Here what I do, I'm going to create the objects of uh, observer uh, class as well the observable class. So observer class object is, so the watcher. So watcher is an observer. So I just create watch, or w observer, okay, equal new watcher. Fine. Here I pass in and one more class is being watched. So I am just creating being watched, um, being watched be observable, observable equal new being watched. Okay. Now So I have created objects for the observer and the observable classes, right? So now watcher, uh, it is uh, it is a class that implements the observer interface, and being watched, it is a class that extends the observable class. So here I have created objects for both the classes, and then now I take this being watched observable class, being watched object, all right, and I would like to notify the observer. So this class being watched might have n number of observers, so I would like to add this uh, particular observer named watcher to the list of observer objects. All right, so I click on being watched object, and then you can see add observer. So I just select that method, and in that I just pass in the um, observer object named watcher, right? That watcher object, w observer, right? You can see I have added. Fine. And then um, I'm gonna call this being watched class does have a method named JIT. So I'm gonna call with the being watched object be observable dot. When I press the when I key in the dot, it shows a number of methods. You can see the JIT, so JIT, and it takes a string object as a parameter. So I will pass in some text here, right? So the text is just master. All right, I just type in master. Fine, that's it. So now now you can see, let me run this program. All right. See, here we go, like we got the program got executed and we got the output. um, Let me show you here. In the console you can see um, from class watcher update master, so it got printed being in the observer class, right? So you can see in the watcher class watcher, you can see which implements the observer, and within the update method, right, which takes argument 1, you can see. So this statement print system.print.outln, this statement got printed. You can see from class watcher update, and then whatever the argument we have passed in master, that's been passed here, that arg dot toString, so that master got printed. All right, and then the next statement is from class being watched JIT master. So again, being watched class is here, class being watched, which extends class observable. All right, inside you can see JIT, it takes a string object as a parameter. You can see set changed and notify observers x, and then system.out.println from being here watched. So here you can see this statement from class being watched JIT method x dot toString, so that same you can see that got printed here from class being watched JIT. All right, so let me explain you the flow. The control initially comes to the main, all right, main string. This is a class msync. Here main method is here, the control comes here. We create object for this watcher class. Okay, so watcher class here is here. So watcher class is implements the observer interface. So this class, watcher class, can be used to observe objects of other classes, all right. So and then being watched object is created. The object name is be observable, all right. So being watched class is here, which extends the observable class. So the class which I mean the whatever the class that extends the observable class, or mean they become whatever the class that extends the observable class. So those class objects can be observed by the observer, all right. And then we have, once we have, after then we have create using the being watched object be observable. We have you can see being watched object be observable dot add observer. It calls the add observer. So what this method does, so this observable class, which may be I mean here in this program, being watched is the observable class. This being watched does have an object called be observable. So this object might have n number of observers. So with the use of add observer, we just add the we just add the observer, this particular observer, to the list of observers. So here we are adding the particular observer name is w observer, that is the watcher class object. So this particular observer is added to the list of observer, all right. So and then you can see using the being watched object be observable, we are calling a method that exists in the being watched class. The name of the method is JIT. So that method is called by this method takes a string object as a parameter, that we are passing a master value object. So once when we call this when we call this add observer, this w observer is added to the list of observers of be observable object, all right. And then when we call this JIT method using the being watched object be observable, by passing the master string object, the control goes to the being object, control comes here, all right. Control comes to this JIT string. So here instead of string, here master is the value string object master is passed, and then this statement, both the statement get executed. Set changed is gets executed. Set changed will notify the observer that some changes has been occurred in the observable class, that is being watched class. And then the notify observable will notify the observer by calling the update method. Also it passes the argument, object argument. Here we have given the x as the argument, x string object x is has been passed. So which I got it, which which that object, this JIT method, which gets this string object from the main method, all right. So again, inside the JIT string method, you can see a print statement from class being watched JIT X. um, all right, when notify observer passing this X, again the control goes to the, see, when the notify observer passing X, when this statement gets executed, control goes to the watcher class. All right, here you can see the update method. It takes the observable as observable as object as being watched. Here the first argument is being watched, that's been passed. Being watched is passed, and then here the value X is passed here. So it does have the value X of the the value of the string object X is that is passed here. All right, argument 1, which is nothing but the master. And then you can see the from class watcher update print statement is I have just printed a statement, and inside you can see org1 dot toString, which is nothing but I just print the argument which I got it. I just print the object which I got it from the uh, observable class being watched class. All right, which is the value of the master. So the from class watcher update argument, right, so you can see it here from class. That's the reason I can see in the output from class watcher master. All right, from class watcher update. So this statement got printed being within the watcher class update method. Okay, and then again the control comes to the main, I mean here. This statement next in the being watched class, it comes, control comes here. Here we print a statement saying from class being watched JIT method, and then we print the value of the X string object. So here in the output console you can see from class being watched JIT master value. All right, fine. So I believe this you understood. I believe this session would have given you complete knowledge on observer interface and observable class in Java. Let me catch you with other topics in the upcoming session. Please do subscribe to the channel Java Track and click on the bell icon to get notified on new post. If you like this session, please share with your friends and well wishers. Thanks for watching. Bye.